I would probably say really enjoy life because it's not that serious. I mean, just, I mean, that's really all I could think. It wouldn't be any profound statement, but, take some time to look around and enjoy what's around you. And everything doesn't have to be this hardcore serious. And there is no playbook to life. That's what I would write. Because there's not.
You're right, and you are able to enjoy it. For sure you are. It doesn't matter how hard your situation is. There's always a choice, and the choice starts within, right? Welcome to the Leaders in Tech podcast. I am your host, David Mancilla. Today we have with us an excellent leader. He works for the cruise ship industry, and he has done many things in his life in order to advance technology, but specifically in the area of leadership. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Patrick, for the audience, can you tell me your full name, where do you live, and what do you do for a living?
All right, my name is Patrick Manuel. I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am an executive in the cruise line industry. And I'm very happy to be here.
This podcast is brought to you by ISU Corp. Are you having trouble with your software projects? Is there a project that's taking too long or a technology you can't handle? We can help. We are ISU Corp, experts in custom software since 2005. With almost 20 years of experience, we can solve any technical problem from new businesses to satellite software. We've done it all. Let us turn your ideas into reality. Learn more about how we can help by visiting us at www.isucorp.ca. Your solution starts here.
Wonderful. Executive in the cruise line industry. You know, those cruise ships, they are like floating cities, aren't they?
Yes. It's come a long way. I've worked for the company for 26 years. So I've seen the industry grow, and I've seen a lot of ups and downs over the years as well.
And you're in the technical side of leadership. What is your role?
Yes, I am. I work in the IT department. I am currently the vice president of Shipboard Technology. So I'm in charge of the technology on board the ships.
Okay, so I had the privilege to actually see some of the stuff that another ship line does to another friend of mine many years ago. And I couldn't believe when he showed me the data center on these things. People have no idea what it takes to run a floating city like that in terms of technology and control centers and everything else that is actually, it provides mission critical operations. Can you describe a little bit like in a general level, like how does computer science, technology, software is involved in a cruise liner?
All right, well, a cruise ship it's like a floating city. So it has several different businesses on board that all require technology. So, it's like a resort, but then it's also a marine vessel that has navigation and other things. And then you have to deal with customs, border patrol, immigration, in countries around. And one of the unique things is it's not connected. So all of our connection to land is through satellite. So it requires us, if that satellite connection is broken for some reason, we must have a completely redundant data center on board. So it's provided some pretty unique challenges over the years of how we do that, even though satellite connectivity is much better than it was many years ago. It's still not perfect, and you have to be able to prepare yourself to be able to be a completely independent running operation on board with, up to, over 6,000 people on board. So you also support the crew and the guests as well, because the crew members live all on board and they have lives and they need to. So you're running a city of employees and a resort of guests at the same time.
So I guess if you have 6,000 people on board, like It's bigger than a lot of townships where I live. I live in Toronto, and you drive 1 hour away, and our townships are like 3,000 people, 2,000 people.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
incredible.
Yes, it really is. So it's been, the ships when I first started were not near as big as they are. We're about to launch the biggest cruise ship in the world. And so it's to look at the difference between when I started in 1997 to now, it's unbelievable. But at any point in time, we were trying to be the leading edge in the end, in the not only the industry, but in the travel industry as well. And people's expectations of being connected and the technology that you provide to them when they're on a vacation, there really is no leeway for any type of disconnection to the world. The expectation now, especially since COVID, is you must be connected at all times.
That's incredible. I remember during COVID, we had a V-shaped recovery situation with the stock market. And one of the things that I did is I invested heavily on the cruise lines because I knew they were going to go back up. Because I looked at I look at the numbers, I look at the financials, and I'm like, these are healthy companies that are going through a great trouble that is momentary, right? So I just took advantage when, when the stocks sank. And then I saw how quickly it went back up after everything was back to normal, right?
Yes. I mean, what happened is there was pent-up demand and people wanted to get out of their houses and go on vacations again. So it almost became one of the most successful years in our company's history when COVID did finally end. And people love to travel. It's COVID's not, it'll scare them off for a couple of years, but they always will come back. I've seen several down periods in the industry over the years, and every time, we just come back stronger.
That is amazing. Patrick, tell me, in order to be in the same company on growing on IT on a multinational like your business, like the business you work at, it takes a lot of effort. I mean, 26 years in one place. Number one is remarkable that the place provides for allowing you to go all the way to the top, but it requires a lot of challenging times for you. I know because I've been there, done that, right? I was in corporate for over 10 years, and it wasn't easy to stay in one place. I actually moved 5 times in those 10 years because after 2 years I was like, okay, what do I do? So I just jumped into another company. So I would love to go deep into your strategies, because your life success and your path is remarkable. So let's look back. I want you to think about your last day of high school. What was in your mind, and what did you want to do with your life back then?
Well, I really did not know. I knew I was good in math. And so at that point in time, in 1988, you became an engineer. I never owned a computer. I really didn't know anything about them. To me, anything, a video game was as technical as I was. So, I left and I went to school and I studied to be an engineer in the beginning. And then I realized I really didn't want to be an engineer, and they were starting a new major at that time called Business Information Systems and Quantitative Analysis. And it sounded fantastic. And I was the first graduating class of that major. And it was basically what now is MIS or BIS. And, I left there and got a job as a programmer, back in 1992. And the first job that I had, I was miserable. I mean, I quite frankly I didn't like sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours a day writing code. And, it was nice that you were producing actual, things. And, it did amaze you that businesses were using assets that you actually created. But I always kind of wanted out of that situation. And I was like, there's got to be more to life, and there's got to be something else that I can do. So I worked that job about 5 years, and then I got a very unique opportunity where I got a job offer in Miami for the cruise industry. And it was actually taking several steps back in my career, but my personality was one, life's too short, go. And so I jumped at it. I started at the very, very entry level position that you could in information technology at that time. The company was very different then. It was, you wore a coat and tie to work every day, which always cracks me up with the COVID protocol, people coming back knowing, oh, I don't want to be in the office 5 days a week, or I don't. And I was like, oh, you have no idea. I worked for a cruise company in Miami, and I had to wear a coat and tie in the middle of the summer 5 days a week. And you did not leave your desk from 9 till 6. I mean, you sat there. And I remember I had a boss at that time that she sat in the corner office, and she was over all of shipboard technology. And you did not leave until she left her office. And everybody sat in their desks till the moment she got up to leave. And when she got up to leave, you couldn't wait till she just left the floor. You had to go look out the window and wait till she left the building, because sometimes she would come back in. And so when she did, everybody would grab their coats, get up and walk out the door. And, it was just a very, very different culture there. But the thing is I've worked with so many people from different countries, because it's a very, very global company. And I really enjoyed meeting new people. So it didn't seem like a miserable job that I was whatever. It was like we were all in this together. And at that time, they sent me out to my first ship to work on my first project. And I had never had a passport before. I traveled to my first ship, and then I fell in love with it. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to travel. I want to be able to provide and help this company and give people vacations. And I quit worrying so much about the bad things at work, and that I had to sit here. I was like, oh, look at what this place is offering me. And yes, I do have to work, but instead of looking at it as such a job, I looked at it as an experience and something that very few people got to do. So that kind of takes me from high school to the very, very beginning of my career in this industry, which was quite a journey. It could have gone a different direction, and I could have ended up sitting, in front of a computer working a miserable job for 30 years. But I didn't. I had to take those chances to get out and go see other things, and it's always paid off. And then, my career here has just been another series of those.
It's beautiful that you say that, Patrick, and that's why you're in this interview, because that's the mindset that it takes to become a great leader in life. Life throws things at you, and you may not like what it is, but you always have the power, the God-given power, to discern and change your situation. So, I mean, being invested 5 years in a single company as a developer, I know you grew. You must have grown, because otherwise you would have been, you would have been gone. So, you grew in your career. You still adopted the computer science, the software development part, even though you didn't like it, because I can tell you're an outgoing person. And, I was a developer for 20 years in my life. And I'm an outgoing person too, but I always loved to code. So what I will do is I will code overnight, and I will socialize at my job during the day. And that's how I got into management so quickly. But I always was in love with coding. With you was the opposite, right? You wanted to have the people-person interaction, right? But my point is, you looked for another opportunity, even though it was going to set you way back 5 years. But instead of looking at the time lost, what you looked is at the opportunity that I was going to give you. And it paid off. Like, look at you now. Imagine if you would have just said, you know what, I spent too much time at this job to let it go, even though it's miserable, I'm going to stay here for the rest of my life. You would have had a horrible life.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting once you make that first jump and realize you don't really, and I even take this back to jobs I had when I was 14 and 15 years old, when you would work a miserable job and you'd leave it and you go, why did I work that job so long? I could have left at any time. So I'm taking that mentality for, most of my career. And then as you get older, it's less about, I'd like to move somewhere else because you don't like what you're doing. It's more because you want another challenge. You want to go solve different problems. And so I have several times jumped into completely different parts of the company. I've always stayed in technology, but supporting different parts of the company just to learn, whether it's, going from something that was in Miami. I worked for a joint venture for a while that the ship sailed from England to Brazil. And I had to learn two completely different cultures and support both of them and transform our product into ways to support Brazilians and English people, on the exact same cruise ship at the time. So every time that you make a jump, you have to have patience. You may not know exactly how to do the job. You may not know the terminology. You may not know. I always enjoyed learning the business side of whatever job that I did, understand how I could provide value through technology, learn exactly what the overall business strategy was and what we were trying to accomplish short-term and long-term. And then as soon as you have that down, it changes. And, then the strategy for some other macroeconomic or world event, something happens, and then you got to start all over again and start thinking again. And I simply love solving problems. And that goes back to the fact that I really liked math. I liked puzzles. I liked everything else when I was a kid. And that's kind of how I treat my career. And, it helps when you really work for a company you believe in, and that opens up a lot of opportunities for you as well. So it's really been a good fit in my career and my personality. And, it was funny when you and I first got into contact that you had written a book of breaking out of corporate jail. And I was like, I've worked for the same company for 26 years. I don't know if I'm a good person. And when we spoke, I understood exactly what the philosophy you were trying to say. And I firmly believe in exactly all of the principles, that you speak of, that, don't let yourself get trapped at all. There's always a door that you can go out, even if it's with the exact same company.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the reasons why that book became so popular was because of the title. But people don't, after you read the book, you realize that it's not about saying that a corporation is a jail. No, it's about that you get into a job that becomes a jail, either that you make it by yourself or it's imposed on you, but you can always have a chance to move out, break out of that jail into a better job, into a better position. It doesn't have to be into an entrepreneurial career. In fact, after my experience in IT with multinationals, when I started my own business, it took me like 3-4 years to make a bigger, stronger, harder to get out of jail that I built myself in my own business. So like I regretted going to work every single day of my business career after 5 years. I'm like, what am I doing? And it required a heart attack for me to realize that I was bounded by my own jail. And so I broke out of my own jail because I created my own corporation. I became horrible. You see?
Yeah, I did experience that several times pretty early in my career. And since then, I have been, I'm not going to, I have been in situations over the last 26 years where a job didn't really fit me, and I knew at that time, hey, just look for another opportunity and it will come up. And you also can turn current situations into better situations if you're a good leader. So, some of the positions that I've taken, it has been in a terrible shape, morale-wise, otherwise. And then, with some sense of humor, some glimpse of hope of careers for other people, and, boosting people's morale, and then really treating it like, hey, we're all a team. We all generally are succeeding together and not competing with each other. Those things, when you can overcome it within a corporate environment, you really can build a very, very healthy, good team and really enjoy it and make sure that everybody enjoys the success together. So it honestly is, I could not have asked for a better career. I've really, really had a good learning experience personally. I've had a lot of growth spiritually, and also I feel as though, you're able to have pride in seeing people that you have worked with and seeing them grow into leaders. And pretty much the company now is run by people I grew up with. They were all analysts at the time. They were all people, and, we've all, succeeding together, and we've all been here a long time. And it's a really, really healthy, good situation, and it is corporate. It still is corporate. We still have earnings we have to do, and we still have all the things that sound miserable, but, with a good sense of humor and everything else, you can win in the corporate world and have a lot of fun.
For sure, Patrick, and I think it's an attitude, right? When you mentioned a sense of humor, it's not necessarily changing corporations. A lot of the times it's changing yourself and being from a place of expectation to a place of gratitude, right? That's what happened to me. I realized I made my own horrible corporation. I made it myself. So I didn't like something that I built. So what did I do? Instead of quitting, instead of selling the company, of closing the business and getting a high-paying job, I actually took a leadership course because I realized I was not a good leader. One of the reasons why I got into these leaders in technology is because of my own life experience. Because yes, the company was making money, was profitable, but it was a horrible place to be at because everybody was fighting against each other. They had competition among each other. It wasn't cooperation. And I inspired those values in them because, the leader creates the culture that for the people that work for them, right? But I didn't know what I was doing, because I was never being brought up as a leader. So I took a year postgraduate degree in leadership in 2013, and I turned the company around. When I came back, I realized what values were, what culture meant, and I changed myself. And you talk about leadership and you talk about spirituality, and they go hand in hand, right? The one thing that I learned is that before, when I analyzed what I was doing wrong with my team, is like I hired a lot of bad people because I wasn't a good person. My whole idea was to make the most money and just squeeze people as much as I could. And and make them work like a soldier, right? They shall do what I say without getting their input. Like I was like a mini god, thinking that it was my way or the highway. How would I have a good business like that, or have a good department like that, for that matter? So after I realized that I was the problem, and I started changing, I came back and I erased everything that I did. Now I work in a beautiful place where everybody trusts each other, they cooperate with each other, and they are working towards the same goal. So now it's a beautiful place to wake up and go to work for, right?
Yeah, there's one thing that I love to tell people when they're talking about how do I advance my career? And it's like, look, don't try to be the smartest person in the room. That's not going to help you out. Generally, be a person people like to work with. Now, whether that's because you accomplish things, or you meet the goals, or you're a good teammate, or you teach somebody or mentor somebody else, it doesn't matter. But people generally have to like to work with you. And if you can't just do that basic thing, you're really going to struggle, no matter you own your own company or you do anything else. So and that goes for the boss as well. People have to generally like to work for you and want to succeed. And it was something that I grew into over time. And when I talk about the job that I worked, when everybody waited until the woman walked out the door and you actually looked out the windows waiting to see if she actually got her door. I am that person now. That is my job that I do now, and I have a completely different type of culture around me, and it's much more, walk around the floor, talk to people, really generally be interested in, people's well-being, go watch the ping pong tournament that they have, and, root for the winner, talk smack, tell people, hey, our team, we want our team to be seen as one of the better teams in the company, and let's all take pride in that, and whatever. And it's really a lot of philosophies that you see from like some sports coaches of, let's really all motivate ourselves to do our best so we can win together. This isn't about just you in your career. This is about, and quite honestly, my career did not take off until I started taking that mentality, and people generally saw, I'm willing to help, I'm trying to solve problems. I'm really not into this for myself and trying to get it trying to just get myself promoted or whatever. And, and then things just started to really fall into place,
Yeah, Patrick, that's one of the things that I learned. During that crash that I had, I had the heart attack. I realized my business was killing me. And then I went to this leadership course after I got healed. Talking back about spirituality, I went back to my faith. And I realized that, I have to be a servant leadership person. Before I was like, one of those old kings that they wanted all for themselves and they were very jealous. And then I realized, the biggest king was Jesus, right? And he was the one that taught servant leadership. He will actually wash his disciples' feet, his students' feet, right? So when I got that, I was taught that at my leadership course. You have to go and realize that you are there to serve your people. You have to do whatever you can to facilitate their work and motivate them to have a better lifestyle and to contribute to the bottom line. But you are there to facilitate, not to demand. Of course, they need to deliver whatever they need to deliver. But once they realize that you are there to help them, not for selfish reasons, people open up, and then everything starts getting better, right?
Yeah, it is I see people every day, even peers of mine, that want their teams to tell them that everything is green and everything is perfect. That's not the way that I lead a team. The way I lead a team is you tell me what's broken and you tell me how I can help you fix it. Because I'm not going to look at you and go, why is this broken? It's your fault. I'm going to go, what do you need to be a success? And let me help you be a success. And, it's even in my situation, if I have bad news to report, I'll be the first person to report it and say, we need help. We need help with this. We're having supply chain problems, or we're having, coming out of COVID, there was all kinds of different challenges that were out of your control, and it doesn't hurt to ask for help. I mean, because in the end, everybody's trying to succeed. So yes, that is, I am a servant to my team. I actually work for them to try to break down barriers and it does help that I've worked for the same company for 26 years. So I know every way to get something done. It's like living in a small town that you know exactly what mechanic to go to or what dentist or whatever. I'm like, hey, I know the guy that can fix this, and I can go do it. So tenure does help a lot when you're trying to knock down barriers for your team.
That's beautiful. Patrick, when was the first time where you were actually in a leadership position and you had to make a tough choice, like letting people go, or anything that is very difficult, and how do you overcome that?
It was probably September 11th was the first time I was in a leadership role, and you were in a corporation, you had to hit a number, you were given. And you really just had to make a list, and it was, you get guided through with HR, but I learned a lot in that situation. I learned empathy. I learned that a career is a long thing, and that people that you may, in a very difficult economic time, have to say goodbye to, you will see them again in one way or another. And so a lot of the people during that time, I have continued to work with in some type of capacity, even as peers in my own company ongoing. But it was difficult. There are always difficult decisions that you have to make in a leadership position. There's times you have to deliver bad news. There's, whether it's that a project, did not go through, or you did not get your funding, but a lot of that goes back to parenting almost, everything can't be always good, and you're going to have to go through good times and bad times. And if my father used to tell me, don't worry about bad days because there's a good day coming. Worry about the good days because something around the corner may be about to happen bad. So I know that's a pretty distorted view on life of, because I do appreciate the good days too. Yeah, it does. It's you know, I would say letting people go is much more of an action of that it's out of your control, and the company has hit a time where they just have to. The more difficult, discussions and things that a leader are probably when somebody truly is not working out or they're not a good fit for a situation, and then when you have to have those difficult, and a lot of times people steer away and don't want to have those discussions, and that's something as a leader you learn it won't go away. You need to address that just like any problem that you would address within a regular workday. HR issues are exactly the same.
Sure. Patrick, if you had somebody that was still in IT doing technical work and they had this vision to become a leader, what would you recommend them to do in order to attract senior leadership to see them as a potential manager or a potential leader?
100% learn your value. So it's not necessarily about how skilled you are technically, which is fine, but you need to learn how you apply those skills to value for where you're working. And that your willingness to play, as a teammate, as I said before, and that that you understand where you fit, and then how you believe you can take what and mentor other people. One thing that I always tell people, you have to build a chief lieutenant. You will never move up if you feel as though and retain the knowledge yourself and try to be, I'm the only person that can do my job, so therefore you need to promote me and move me into better leadership. No, you actually show that you've taught your teammates to do what you can do, and now you're in a position where you can lead them. I mean, that is one of the most important things in technical world, and people love to hold on to information. They like to be the only person that knows something, and that's really, really just totally the wrong approach.
It's so true, Patrick. Actually, I had to deal with that in my own company many, many times, and that's why I was so like when I changed everything, and we got together with our HR team to make sure the job interviews that we got was taking people out that had that mentality, because it's hard to train, especially if you're a very specialized person. You have this technology that nobody knows, and you come in and then you hoard it. All you're doing is creating a weak link in your chain. If something happens to that person, the company goes into trouble to replace that person. And you're right, the best way to grow in your career is to teach everybody what you know and to help them to do even better than you do, because then you can show value, because then you go to the next level and you keep doing the same thing. That's why you are a senior vice president now, because you have that mentality. And people that think, oh, I'm going to hold on my job because nobody knows what I know. Listen, I had to replace people that I thought they were replaceable, and I replaced them like that. It was insane. And I learned that lesson early in my career, because I became that guy. I remember when I hit my senior architecture roles in software. Oh, I consider myself, the one guy that if I resign, the company will go under. And I actually resigned from one of those jobs, and the company didn't go under. Who went under was me, but I learned my lesson. Then, I asked God, sorry, Lord, I became arrogant, I became proud, and this is, I'm paying for it. So I actually, the next job that I went into was 10 times worse, half the pay. I didn't have to leave, but it was my pride that made me leave, because I thought, oh, when I leave, they're going to go under, that's, so for the audience, if you want to grow your career, make sure you share your knowledge and you have that teamwork mentality. That's the only way to grow.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say, once you become a young leader, it's the ability to recruit and build teams that will make you successful. And I've seen over my career in IT, everybody looks for the unicorn that's going to be the perfect employee. And I'm like, listen, if you're a really good leader, you'll be able to identify somebody that's smart and talented, and then you'll be able to grow them in your image and be able to make them a very good teammate. Because if you hire somebody too specific, they're going to know that skill set, and they're going to kind of paint themselves in a box. And that's not what you want to do as a leader. You want to find people that are much more Swiss Army knives, people that can do different things, people that you can move. I mean, one thing that I love to do within my teams is I'll have somebody that is an absolute expert at one thing, and I'll pick them up and move them into a completely different team. And then within 6 months, I see them excelling in that team. And there is nothing more satisfying than seeing somebody do that, because you're like, now I'm not just, I don't just have an employee, I have somebody, I'm building their career. And, and a lot of times they don't see it themselves. So, hiring really, really good talent, which comes with a hunger, a desire to win, ability to be a teammate, and everything else that we talked about. It really just starts even at the bottom level. But a lot of people get stuck in that first rung of the ladder of leadership. They feel as though that you need to be, a very strict boss and that's really not the game you're playing. You're trying to build a winning team, and that's it. And then once you build a winning team and your team wins, and then they'll say, why don't you want to run 2 winning teams or 3 winning teams? And then, why don't you run a team that's running other teams that are winning? And, it's really not anything that complicated. You just got to get your mind right yourself and know that it's not. I tell my team I'm the least technical person in the entire department. And, I'm here to help you and lead you. You guys are the smart ones, that know all the technical things. I just try to make sure that we're all rowing in the right direction together and working, towards a common goal.
Beautiful. And, you touched on something very important. For me, a true leader is the one that creates other leaders, because now you're leaving a legacy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that there is nothing better than having somebody that started at the ground level with you and then promoting them into a senior leadership position, and know that you saw their entire career grow. That is one of the most satisfying things in a career, that you can have. A lot of other people, they like to hire people in from other companies and bring in, new blood. And I like to home grow everything. I mean, that's just my philosophy. And I think it builds an extremely healthy team when you show the opportunities, that are available to team members, at even the beginning levels, and they can see, wow, he started, because I did the same thing. I started at the absolute bottom. I was plankton, the bottom of the food chain. Yeah. So, yeah. And so, you just slowly, to me, it's healthy, to see people grow. And sometimes it takes patience. It takes a lot of coaching, because sometimes people, they don't really know that that's the path that you need to do, especially people in the technical world really get caught in, I got to be the smartest person in the room. And that's really not what's going to get you places.
And you're right. And it's all about that, going back to that pride, right? You have to really be humble to realize that you're there to serve others. And that's how you actually grow up in your career, and you help others grow, and you make your business prosperous and profitable. And that's why you never lose your job, because you're an asset to the company, because you understand the business and you know that they need to make money in order to hold on your position and the position of your teams, of your teammates, right?
Yeah, and understanding the business is very, very, very important, because that's how you truly find where I give value. Somebody's not going to reward you for writing a super unique, great piece of code, but they're going to reward you for writing a piece of code that then is bringing in more revenue or cutting costs. Because I mean, it really is a business in the end of the day that needs technology. So it's learning your place of value within the company is also, finding a way to do something cheaper is very important, other than saying, I can do this project for you for multi-millions of dollars and it's just going to be really cool. I mean, that's not how businesses make money.
That's how you go out of business. Actually, so I have a software consulting company. I work with companies like yours to build custom applications when they run out of capacity or they don't have the technology inside. So we consult with them. And I remember when I started my business in 2005, one of my bosses told me, there's another 2,000 companies that do what you do. And you have no experience on how to sell, market, and build, like, what you're doing, right? But then I thought, I'm going to try. If it doesn't work, I go back and get another job. But I knew the business side of things because growing up in my corporate ladder, my mentors told me, you have to learn that your team has to pay its own wage plus create profits for the company. So I was a business-driven person when I did this. So when I got my first clients, I made sure I added value to their life. I made sure I delivered an extra mile. Like I did above and beyond what the contract said. And most of my competition never wanted to do that. They were just looking at the bottom line, at the money they were making. So as a result, 18 years later, probably 2% of those 2,000 companies are still in business, and one of them is me, right? But it's exactly what you said, right?
Yeah. And, the other thing is, if you're really not enjoying, to get back to, the point of making sure that you're not in a corporate jail, if you're really not enjoying what you're doing, you got options, and one option is to change your own mindset. And so I have been a firm believer in that. And I feel as though I've had a great career. I'm one of the few people, that's out there that really, truly wakes up and enjoys doing my job. I mean, I never know what problem I'm going to get. I never know what situation I'm going to be. Do I have some sleepless nights and have to solve problems at 3:30 in the morning, rolling around in my bed? Of course, but that's part of it. But in the end, I always feel as though we're headed towards a great goal of showing people really good vacations. And, I don't take for granted the good things that I have in my job, like the ability to travel, the ability to meet people around the world, the ability to coach people, the ability to meet people, the ability to see some of my peers and my supervisors that are, extremely intelligent people that I still learn from every day. And, I'm still not done. I am going to find other things to do in this company, and I am going to continue to challenge myself and have a good time. And so I really love to spread the message of when I hear people and, they talk about, my job, and I'm like, it's like, man, you got choices. And I have two sons now that are just about to start the journey, and they're looking for the perfect job. They're like, Dad, we want a job like yours. And I was like, I didn't have a job like mine when I first started. I mean, you got to start somewhere. But wherever you work, if you don't like it, you can always change jobs, but the last thing you're going to do is live in my basement for the rest of your life. So you better go find some job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Patrick, is so sad because the majority of workers in corporate America, that includes Canada, by the way, they are not happy. They're just dragging their feet to work every day because they need a paycheck. And it's just their mindset. Like for me, it's like, what a horrible way to waste your life. You're right. Yeah. You have choices, but the first choice is change your mindset. Because if you change jobs, you're going to bring yourself with you. So you're going to have the same problems that you had in the previous job if you don't change the way you look at things. And you start with gratitude and with the purpose of serving, right? Like when you stop saying what's in it for me and you say what's in it for them, your life changes and you become happier. And that's contagious too, by the way.
Yeah, it's so easy after you've been through the long journey and made the mistakes and been in the mindset that you look at people go, why do you think like that? And I'm like, well, I used to think like that. I mean, a lot of it's experience. You just have to kind of go through it and slowly learn, and listen to people that try to tell you, give you advice. There's a lot of advice I wish I would have taken a long time ago. I did end up in a very good place and had a very good career for the most part. But, there is, I wish young people I can't say young, people coming out of COVID that didn't want to come back into the office. I'll just put it that way, that are like, I want to work from home. And then I was just like, why would you want to work for, there's so many interesting people out there, and there's an office culture, and you can sit in your home anytime you want. And in the beginning, there was like, oh, nobody's going to come back to the office. Now I go into the area, my area where my team is, and people are interacting and they're laughing and they're telling stories, and you have to get up and close my door because people are laughing and hanging out and stuff like that. And it's like, this is a beautiful thing. And now when somebody comes and interviews and they're like, oh, they want to be able to work from home, at least 50% of the time. And I'm like, well, maybe they're not right for the culture of my team, because my team likes each other.
Right.
We don't want to stay home. We like to come, and work together. So, that is advice that right now I wish people starting out their careers would understand. You're doing yourself no favors by saying you want to sit in your house. That is not how you build a career in leadership, so at least not in the technical side. Maybe you could do that if you want to be a salesperson.
And you're right, but there is pros and cons to both sides, but you're completely right. Like, the problem is that we are human beings and we are social beings first. We are made to socialize with other humans. I mean, I know there is extroverted people, introverted people. A lot of IT folks like to be by themselves, but you still need that social interaction. You still need to also learning from your leaders. Like, if you want to have a mentor, good luck having it online. And I have people in 9 countries, Patrick. Like, a lot of my guys work from home. And actually, I have built programs for them to socialize. And most of my guys are coders and business analysts and project managers, right? So, but yeah. I do try to make an effort to keep them together and build that culture, which is 10 times harder when it's online. But if you have the privilege to have an office where you can actually get out of your house and dress up and smell the air and go into an environment that is beautiful where you can contribute, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah. And I'm not by any means a hardcore, everybody has to be in the office or anything. I'm just saying, don't paint yourself in a box in a situation where you're saying you refuse to come into an office until you try it and see the culture of whatever you're trying to work on and what problems you're trying to solve. So there are a lot of people that it is a really good situation. There's a lot of people that have personal situations that they have to work remote, and we deal with those on. However, but I do think that the future of being a leader in IT, you really need to be interactive. And I realize there's companies that don't believe that and think other ways, but the company that I work for is all about people and interaction. It's at the core of our business. So, that's just kind of the way we are and the way that I've grown up as a leader and as an individual.
But, even big tech companies that push everybody home, they are calling them back. They are realizing that it's not working out,
And it honestly really has nothing to do with productivity. It's much more collaboration and teamwork and solving things. If you're somebody that really is just going to sit and look at a computer screen all day and just write code, then that's one thing. But if you're going to work in an active team where everybody's collaborating and trying to prioritize and solve problems, together, then it really is a lot better to spend some time together.
And also, Patrick, there is one thing that is the social need part, right? Like, especially for people that are starting off their careers. If you start your career and you always work from home, don't get surprised when you start getting depressed and you don't know why you're getting depressed. It's because that lack of communication with other people, with other humans.
Oh, yeah. The 2 years of COVID, well, we're 18, however long we were, that we were remote as a company and you could not come into the office, was the worst time of my entire career. I mean, I was absolutely miserable because I am somebody that loves that interaction and likes to be around people. And, it was tough, and also our company was completely out of business, so that didn't help, but, it really was a tough time. So when we came back to the office, I embraced it, greatly and just said, look, when you don't have something, you really learn to appreciate it. So,
Patrick, thank you so much for your time. I don't want to over abuse it. I know you are a busy leader. One last question before we end the podcast. If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in it?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would probably say really enjoy life because it's not that serious. I mean, just
Enjoy
I mean,
life.
that's really all I could think. It wouldn't be any profound statement, but take some time to look around and enjoy what's around you. And everything doesn't have to be this hardcore serious. And you know what I would write? I'd write, there is no playbook to life. That's what I would write.
Yeah.
Because there's not.
You're right. And you are able to enjoy it. For sure you are. It doesn't matter how hard your situation is. There's always a choice, and the choice starts within, right? Like the river of water starts in your heart. That flow of water that gives you happiness starts inside of you, inside of your head. And it's a choice, and it's not easy. Like sometimes I go down myself too. I'm like you. I'm like positive. I'm laughing. I'm smiling most of the time. And then a big problem hits, and I'm like, I go down. But then, I allow myself, to mourn about my problem. But then, okay, let's get back up. How do we fix it? Because we're in this world to enjoy it.
Yeah, it really is okay to enjoy life. And some people take it way too seriously that they have to, no. I have to do this and I have to do that. And I have to, it's like, no, you don't. Enjoy it. So, it's a really good philosophy. I'm really glad I made contact with you. You see the world in a very similar way than I do.
Wonderful,
So it's been a
Patrick. Thank you so
pleasure.
much for your time, your effort. If people would like to get in touch with you, or they would like to go on vacations with your company, where can they find you?
I will leave that in the blog portion of that. So, but yes, I would love to talk to anybody, and I would love to see you on board one of our ships. That would be fantastic because they are a lot of fun. That's how we built them.
Well,
I put a lot of 26 years into that.
I'm probably gonna be the first person, because my wife and I have never been on a cruise ship before. So I'll be talking to you about that.
All right. I'll look forward to it.
Patrick, thank you so much for being in the show. God bless you, and have a wonderful rest of the week.
Okay. You too. All right. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.